Well, welcome to another episode of the Changing Lives podcast.
Yeah, it's exciting to have you with us today.
You are not going to want to miss that. You are lucky
Yes.
to be listening to this episode. This is fascinating.
Yeah.
We have on the episode today Sean Golding, an APC or graduate of the Diploma of Paramedical Science, a registered paramedic, an airline captain of some decades, started way back in his teens, did his first solo flight before he got a driver's license.
And if that's not an indication for what you're going to hear more about his achievements and the things that he's done in this interview, I don't know what else could be. It's a cracking interview. The guy's just full of advice, full of life lessons. If you're on the journey of study, or if you're thinking about it, you're gonna come away with so much encouragement, so much insight into really the opportunities ahead for you. And I think inspiration. Here's someone that's out there doing it. Just really enjoyed our chat with him today.
Yep, and you're also going to hear about things like he's a world record holder, flying the longest non-stop flight, and even how his diploma in paramedical science and his medical knowledge led him into research, fatigue research, and into that almost accidental world record. Absolutely fascinating story, and Sean is such a grounded, in a sense, grounded, the pun there, but grounded, and a real just curiosity for life, which has driven him from obviously a young age to multiple industries with that sense of curiosity. And what else can I learn? So you're going to get so much out of this episode. I can't wait for you to get into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I constantly review things. Like, I'm finding, even though I've finished the course, there's still so much to learn and there's still so much to revise, because I can't remember everything. I think unless you've got a photographic memory, which I don't, I've got to constantly go over things. So I will spend, potentially before a shift, an hour, maybe 2 hours if I'm getting into it, just learning about other things. I'll ask people. We forget there's other people with a lot of experience out there to ask as well. So rehearsing things. If I'm sitting at an event, for example, I'm working with some very experienced paramedics that have been in the state system, and I'll just sit there and say, hit me with some scenarios. Just let's go over things together. Gives me a chance to pick their brains. They've been doing it for 30 plus years. What a resource to have next year and not use. So that's how I prepare. I read, I talk to people, I ask questions, I think about scenarios myself. What would I do if this happened? So it's a constant process to improve yourself, and you're never going to know everything.
Well, Sean Golding, thanks so much for your time today. I'm really looking forward to having a chat.
Great, thanks Ben and Tim. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really looking forward to it also.
Yeah, it's great to finally meet you, mate.
Thanks for dressing up for us.
I'm about to start work, so it was actually not put on.
Excellent. And we'll go into what you're doing at the moment. Obviously, you're operating as a paramedic, a registered paramedic. You're on site. Is it chilly down there?
It's freezing cold. I think it was about -4 last night, so nice and toasty in the room, but I'm about to venture out in an hour or so.
Can you tell us where you are?
I'm down in Cooma, just south of Canberra, and we're here on a deployment to support the influx of skiers over the winter season with the increased demand.
Excellent. So you're, as I said before, operating as a paramedic, but you're an airline captain, and this has recently been highlighted on TV. Congratulations for your appearance on Sunrise just a couple of weeks ago. What was that like?
Thank you. Yeah, that was a great experience. Actually, it was good to share what I'm doing with others. One of the reasons I went on the Sunrise program was really to show that, if people are facing, tough times like we are as pilots, none of us are working, and we don't even have a start date yet. It could be as late as next year sometime, being an international pilot. So it's a matter of just, you're facing a tough time, rolling up your sleeves and just getting the job done. It's an opportunity rather than a setback. That's how I'm looking at it, which is driving us forward. It's great. And if I can show that to other people, then and help them and inspire them to do something and take something positive away from it, then that's my job done. I'm happy to do that, and that's why I did it on Sunrise.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I would say, from a pilot to kind of choosing paramedicine and becoming, a paramedic. I mean, that's not necessarily the in my mind, at least, I would have thought a natural progression, but maybe there is, and maybe you could kind of give us a bit of an insight as to why you went down this pathway of being a paramedic from being obviously a successful pilot. Can you talk a bit about that pathway, where that interest
it's a good
sparked?
question. Absolutely. I went about it in quite a roundabout way, because previously I had been a scuba diving instructor, and one of the issues that I came up with was wanting to have more capability to manage, my students if something was to happen. And I was just doing that very casually on the side while I was flying. It's always been an interest of mine, since I was, late teens. And so I started exploring some more senior first aid courses. And the more I looked at them, the more I realized that I actually wanted more. I wanted to learn a little bit more than they had to offer. So I started then looking at what other options were available. And I came across the Diploma of Paramedical Science with APC, and it really suited me just in terms of the flexibility it offered, because I was working full time and I couldn't commit to certain hours of the week because my hours were all over the place. So I thought, look, I'll give it a go. I hadn't studied for a while. And it was another challenge, and I thought, well, I could probably use my time sitting in hotel rooms when I'm away a little better than what I was. Getting through a lot of Netflix was probably not the most productive thing. So, look, I signed up, and from the moment I started studying, I just loved the subject material. I loved learning. I loved what it was about. I loved the fact that there was an outcome that I could actually get a formal qualification and actually use it to do something. So it took me just on 2 years to complete, studying part-time. I was doing other courses in the meantime at work, so it was a little bit of a juggling act, but we got there. And so, pretty much from the moment I started studying, I realised that I would like to do this, even on a part-time basis. I wasn't going to replace my career, but it was going to be something that I did in addition to my career, just for self-fulfillment and satisfaction. So that's why I did it. And, I'm still loving it. It's great. And it's given me a good opportunity. I didn't plan for this, but it's just so happened that given that I'm not flying anymore, now I get to do this instead, which has worked out really well. Yeah.
That's incredible. And no one could have anticipated this, and it's just it seems like you maybe had some sort of inner leaning to get into this to prepare. Now, which is amazing. We want to get into your career and journey and stuff like that, and you're a world record holder for the longest non-stop flight, but you talked about being interested in paramedicine, but you've ticked all these boxes in an industry. What is it that made you want to try something different?
I pretty much, in my aviation career, I've been given a lot of opportunity, and I have achieved a lot of what I set out to achieve, and it's been an amazing career, very rewarding. I've been flying with Qantas for 31 years now. I've been flying since I left school. I got my pilot's license before I could drive. So it was something that I was immersed in for, over 3 decades. And I just wanted another challenge. I just wanted to do something that I could use, that I was interested in, that I could exercise my brain and learn a new skill. And I don't want to ever stop learning. And I don't think any of us can stop learning. Every day is an opportunity to learn something. So for me, it was just formalizing that learning, presenting another challenge, and getting a skill set that even if I didn't make a career from, was still useful. I could still use it, and I've used it, numerous times already. I've had people collapse in supermarkets, and I've been able to walk over there and, give them a hand and stabilise them until the emergency paramedics arrived. So anything like that is useful, especially if you can help somebody along the way.
Yeah, I love that how you highlight the fact that it is something that you can kind of utilize regardless of whether there's a career. It's something that to add to your arsenal of knowledge and practice, the ability to always be prepared to help people in any circumstances. That's I find that really important to know. How about though, have you seen any crossover in how it's maybe enhanced your ability as a pilot in your careers? Are there similarities? Are there any differences in the roles, that kind of those dual roles and kind of skill sets that you have?
Yeah, another good question, and there is a lot of similarity. There's a lot of similarity in that there's a lot of procedural-based processes to follow. Now, we work in, at times, very high-pressure, time-critical environments. There's immediate actions that we need to remember as a pilot, just as there is in a paramedic. There's a lot of acronyms to remember. I can't remember them all. In fact, I'm saving them on my phone. There's just too many.
Do you make up your own acronyms?
I have acronyms for the acronyms, so I can't remember them all. But in terms of the similarities, and it's again that sense of not knowing what you can expect each day. You don't know what you're going to walk into. So I'm about to start a shift now, and although it's lower acuity than the emergency paramedics, you're still dealing with quite sick people, and you don't know if they'll deteriorate on you. You've got to be prepared for anything, really, and that's what I love. And that's what the same as aviation. We just don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully it's routine. I like it routine, but we're also prepared if it's not. And it's the same with paramedicine. You like it generally routine, but you still need to be prepared if it's not. So they're the kind of similarities. They're the mindset. It's analysing risk. It's running through processes. It's communicating, working as part of a team. All of these elements are very similar between aviation and paramedicine.
Yeah. I kind of, the thought comes to my mind, you're up in the sky. Do you have like a saying where you don't say to the other co-pilot, gee, it's quiet up here, or it's just a very smooth ride so far? Is as you alluded to, this love for the routine and
that's it. Oh, look, I tend not to say things like that. And you might think it, but we just don't say it. Yeah, because Murphy's Law will get you every time. Exactly. He's waiting around the corner for you. Yeah.
Well, you obviously you're very prepared if something were to happen, and that's why we love our pilots. We know that they're thoroughly trained, and in that I noticed as I was kind of reading a bit about your bio, you've designed actual training procedures, and you're not only the top. I mean, I remember flying on the Dreamliner, and that was a nice plane.
It is. It's a beautiful plane.
It's probably a lot different to fly than it is to sit in and enjoy. But yeah, tell us a bit more about. I'm curious just a bit more about some of your achievements there within the training side of things.
Yeah. So I went and years ago I studied for a diploma in workplace training, and so once I got that diploma, I was already an instructor with Qantas. I started instructing in 2001 as a junior instructor, and then I worked my way up through the instructor ranks to become what they call a Category A instructor, which meant that we could take an empty aeroplane with our students and fly around Avalon Airport doing what we call circuits. So the plane would land, and then you would put the power on, and off you would go again, and we basically a takeoff and landing every 6 minutes as we fly around the airport, which was kind of fun. So that was the epitome of my instructing when I was flying the 767. And then after I finished that diploma, I got invited in to have a look at redesigning the Qantas pilot training program. And that program that process took rather 18 months to do. So we designed at that stage. That was over 10 years ago now. We looked at all the flying programs in the simulator and on the aircraft and on the ground school. So from a pilot literally commencing with Qantas to finishing, we looked at pretty much every training aspect. And yeah, we designed that system, which, you know, by and large, it's been changed a little over the years, but the core elements are still there, which we're very proud of. Because I led a team of 8 people on that, and yeah, we all worked really hard to get that done. It was fantastic. So that was a really big achievement to do that. And then once I finished that, I went on to become the training manager on the 767. So I was looking after pretty much all of the 767 pilots and all the aircraft.
Wow.
I think at the time we had about 29 767s. We had about 400 pilots.
Wow.
And about 40 instructors. So I pretty much looked after all of that, dealt with the government, with the regulator, our own internal policies and so on. So that was quite a challenge. I did that for a couple of years.
Wow.
And then pretty much then came back, did almost a full circle and just came back, and I was a flight examiner teaching in the simulator. So we have various categories of instructor. So in the simulator, we train and we also test people. So in fact, the simulators are so good, we can actually train people and I can sign off on their license to fly a particular aircraft, and they would never have even set foot in that aircraft. So they wouldn't have even seen an aircraft, and I can still sign them off as having license to fly it. So the simulators are that good.
Wow.
Yeah. Which
Right.
is great. So and I took that role on, and then I go home and I have a kind of normal life, and I only fly for half the time. But when I went onto the Airbus, I wasn't an instructor, so I was flying all the time. I had a lot more available time in the hotel, and that's when I started to get a little bit edgy and wanted to do something, and that's what led me into the paramedicine, as I said earlier. So yeah, my time away sitting in hotels was spent doing assignments for APC and submitting them and making phone calls when I had questions, and it was just a better use of time that I could do something with rather than sit around and watch TV or read a book. So it was good. And then the Qantas were announcing that they were getting the 787s, and I applied to be an instructor on the 787. And yeah, I got the job, and yeah, I've been on the 787 since the beginning of 2017 as an instructor, and it's been awesome. The guys I work with are great. The airplane's great, so it's a really, really nice place to be working. And then because did the paramedicine, I finished that. I got invited onto our fatigue safety action group, which basically studies fatigue and the effects of fatigue on all our pilots. And that's what led me into doing the New York-Sydney flight, because I was the 787 representative on that team. This was all about fatigue research. So that flight wasn't supposed to be a record-breaking flight. And that was not the purpose of the flight. The purpose was to study the effects of ultra-long-haul flying. So we were rigged up with a whole bunch of equipment. We had EEGs.
Oh my goodness. The inside scoop.
Yeah, that's it. So it was, we had light meters, we had acti watches, we were doing sleep diaries. It was weeks of study. We were human guinea pigs. So that was the purpose of the flight. It wasn't actually to go and break a record. That was just a secondary effect of the flight. So we spent months preparing for this, and we had university researchers working with us. We were developing a lot of the research protocol that the pilots would be doing on board. So that was a fairly big task. And then, on the 20th of October last year, we touched down after that big flight. And I remember coming in, my co-pilot kindly reminded me that a few 100,000 people will be watching my landing and not to stuff it up. So
how's that for some pressure?
Yeah, that was just a nice comment to take the pressure off. So, but fortunately, it worked out. I looked at it on TV afterwards and said, "Oh, that was okay." So, yeah, that was probably the highest pressure moment in the flight. getting the touchdown with all the viewers watching.
My goodness.
It was good. So that's kind of how I ended up here. And then obviously working, I wanted to keep the skills as a paramedic up. So I was working part-time doing event paramedic and patient transport paramedic work. And then, literally just fell on my feet with COVID when it hit. We had no time. We had an announcement. Literally, we had about 2 weeks, I think, to prepare. We were told the borders were shutting and we wouldn't be flying.
Goodness.
And that was it. Here I am in Cooma.
Wow. Can I so Sean, can I just clarify? You mentioned before, and this is so interesting, this fatigue research, but your diploma study, that led into that research. Is that correct?
It did because of the physiology of the fatigue. It's got a medical-based approach to it, and I was working a little bit with the doctor out at Qantas, who's our head of medical services at Qantas, and he actually made the suggestion that maybe you should go and get on board with this group because, you've got some background in it. It's not directly related, but there's elements of the physiology that I'll understand a little better
100%.
Because I've got some background in it. So that's why I got on board.
Amazing. Wow. And okay, just for me as a relatively very simple idea of what it takes to fly an aeroplane, I'm thinking like, big deal, Sean. You need a big fuel tank to get from New York to Sydney, but what else do you need?
You need a good bed to sleep in. The fuel was the critical component to that one. We were running flight plans literally daily to make sure that with the wind components, with the aircraft weight and so on, that we would actually make it. And their flight plans were looking pretty good. They were indicating that with the passenger load and the fuel we had, we'd actually make it. And so that was quite comforting until the night before, when I was out at dinner and we had a text message from the flight dispatch people saying that the winds had picked up and it was looking marginal. So, that was a little concerning. The next day, however, it improved again a little bit and we were okay. But we were topping those fuel tanks up. When you're at the service station and you're wanting to fill your car up and it clicks off, and then you want a little bit more, so you pull the trigger and you're trying. We were doing that on the airplane, so we were just topping it up. And I remember we topped it up and we had 101.3 tons of fuel. So and we landed in Sydney with 4.7 tons of fuel. So we burnt 96.5 odd tons. 96.6 tons of fuel to get there, which was good. 95%. We made it. That was the main thing. But what else do we need? Look, the fatigue research was indicating, although we were experimenting with a lot of stuff. We were experimenting with the timing of our rest breaks. We were experimenting with what meals we were eating. We were experimenting with lighting because light does affect your ability to produce melatonin, so therefore, which affects your sleep quality. Noise levels. We wore these EEGs. There's some photos going around with us wearing these headbands and basically just measuring brainwave activity. And the researchers were doing that. That research hasn't been published yet, so I actually haven't seen the results, but I'm hoping we get some pretty good information out of it. Yeah, really pushing the human and the machines to the limits.
Yeah, man. That's so insightful. Like, here we are just thinking it's just an attempt to beat the previous record by a few minutes, but here you are, like, just conducting all this research. But I'm kind of curious. Obviously, you've been in, you've got a lot of experience, and things probably always haven't turned out to plan, haven't gone to plan. Can you kind of share maybe an experience or just give us some insight into those moments when things don't go to plan, or when you wish you could have your time back.
Yeah, I mean, you mean generally, or you mean in the aircraft, or just anything.
Just maybe a story
Yeah.
where things haven't gone to plan and how it played out and how it maybe you took it as a learning experience in your career.
Look, that happens often anyway. I always try and develop a plan B regardless of what I'm doing. I try and talk to my kids about that you've always got to have another option. Don't ever put yourself into a corner. And that in aviation often is taught to you from the beginning. I remember, early on when I was flying small aeroplanes, you would be so conscious about the weather. You had to fly in good weather. We couldn't fly in clouds at that stage of my training. And, weather conditions can change very quickly. I remember one incident where I had a partial engine failure on takeoff in a small plane. And, even on a takeoff, having a look at where I could possibly land if the engine did fail. You talk to any small aeroplane pilot, and that's generally what should go through their mind. If it doesn't, it should.
Right.
So constantly thinking about contingencies, constantly thinking about the what ifs, putting some measure of risk when you're making those decisions, looking at what the risks are if I did option A versus option B.
Wow.
So it's kind of ingrained in the way I think, and pilots generally do think that way. And I certainly try and teach my students to think that way, because if you've got a plan B, if you've got another option, no matter what it is, whether it be in life, like what's happened to me now, I've got no flying work, so this is my plan B. I've got other things that I'm doing as well. I've got plan C, D, and E as well. So I do that. So so this time when I had that partial engine failure on takeoff, the plan B was to land in a paddock, and we talked about that. But the engine produced just enough power. We were just clipping the trees nearly as we took off. And I was out at a little airport west of Sydney, which is no longer there, called Hoxton Park Airport. And there was a hill at the end. And I remember looking across at the guy that I was training with, who's actually working with me at Qantas now. And I think his eyeballs were the size of saucers as we were, and I'm sure mine were too, as we nearly clipped the trees. But we made enough power to get altitude to get around and land. I didn't think we got above about 200 feet. Normally you're at 1,000 feet. But constantly looking, if this engine was to quit now, where am I going? Where is my plan B? My plan A is to get back to the airport, but I was just literally flying from paddock to paddock looking at where we could go. So, that was quite a moment. And when the wheels touched down after that, there was a huge sigh of relief. That was quite a while ago now. I think I was all of about 20 years of age, and that was one of those experiences that I really didn't want to have happen again. But that's it. Like in life, it's just having your plan B, making sure that you don't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. And it gives you some sense of comfort knowing that if it turns bad, then it's okay. Yeah.
And I can imagine that would be a great approach in paramedicine as well, constantly risk mitigating, thinking what could the worst be here and how do I prepare? Is that correct?
So it is, and it's almost like the mantra of I'm hoping for the best, but I'm planning for the worst. That's what I think. That's really, in summary, how it works.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And sorry, Sean. Yeah. What are the ways? What are the ways in which you do that as a paramedic?
So I constantly review things. Like I'm finding, even though I'm finished the course, there's still so much to learn and there's still so much to revise, because I can't remember everything. I think unless you've got a photographic memory, which I don't, I've got to constantly go over things. So I will spend, potentially before a shift, an hour, maybe 2 hours if I'm getting into it, just learning about other things. I'll ask people. We forget there's other people with a lot of experience out there to ask as well. So rehearsing things. If I'm sitting at an event, for example, I'm working with some very experienced paramedics that have been in the state system, and I'll just sit there and say, hit me with some scenarios. Just let's go over things together. Gives me a chance to pick their brains. They've been doing it for 30 plus years. What a resource to have next year. and not use. So that's how I prepare. I read, I talk to people, I ask questions, I think about scenarios myself. What would I do if this happened? So it's a constant process to improve yourself, and you're never going to know everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to note that you were able to become a paramedic from the diploma. Can you even, you're obviously putting a lot of extra time and learning into that. How did you get that process through with just doing the diploma to become a paramedic?
So you needed to get 1,700 hours of paramedic experience as well.
Okay.
So fortunately, where I'm working, it's provided that opportunity. I'm actually I haven't quite got it yet. I'm nearly there because I was a bit slow because I was working as a pilot, but now I'm getting the hours up.
Poor
I'm nearly
excuse.
finished, so I'll be finished at 1,700. So I've got provisional registration under the organisation. I'll have full registration in about a month or two. That's it. So the diploma does give you that opportunity, but it's changing because I think you've only got till the end of next year, I believe, to get that 1,700 hours to be able to get full registration. Otherwise, you'll have to go down the degree path. But I'm also thinking of doing that anyway. Just again, for further education, just to learn more. And I think having the diploma under my belt, having some experience, brings a lot more context into the degree. So I think the step is not going to be as huge. I'm not quite as daunted by the study as I was when I first started off with the diploma. There's a lot of familiarity about things now. So that diploma has really set me up. It's the diploma plus the experience and the ongoing learning. I think you can't just complete the course and think that's it,
right?
Because it's not enough. It gives you a license to learn more.
I love that. That approach, a license to learn more.
Yeah, and that's the approach I take. It's just learning more. That's why I ask these guys. I quiz them. I ask them. We run scenarios. I read books. I talk to doctors. I'm getting involved in human factors training with medicine now. A lot of the doctors are interested in how we do things in aviation, so I'm putting together some courses on that. Working with some emergency specialists and anaesthetists, which has been awesome. Yeah.
Oh wow, man, rubbing shoulders, man. That's
you know what? I think if we all learn from each other, it's just a great place to be in. That's what I'm using. They learn from me, I learn from them,
sure.
And at the end of it, we're all better off.
Yeah.
So, has there been a significant moment in your career as a pilot that it may be something simple, it may be something more complex, a moment that's given you great satisfaction and a sense of, wow, this has all been worth it?
Yeah, I can actually tell you the most defining moment for that, and that was the day I became a captain. The day that I became a captain, an international captain, that was pretty amazing. It was such hard work to get there. It took me, and I went fairly quick. There's some people that, it's not got anything to do with their ability. It's just the industry cycle of supply and demand. But I was very fortunate to become a captain after 12 years with Qantas. I remember my training to be a captain was just grueling. I was studying 2 hours a day for a year before I even started the training because I was so determined to pass. I wanted to pass it straight up. And it was during the Sydney Olympics, and I was confined to a study, and I missed out on all of the Olympics because it was on when I was in the middle of my training.
Wow.
And I remember doing my flying, and I had to do, I think, about 5 flights where the check captain was assessing me. It was at the end of the training. I was exhausted, and I did this flight from Perth into Singapore, and I remember landing, and I felt that was a good flight. I did a good landing, and I taxied off, and this guy wasn't saying anything, and I thought, surely I've got to have passed. And he's not saying a word. And I thought, oh, then you start to self-doubt. Then you start to think, have I missed something that was obvious, but I haven't seen it yet? And we pulled up at the gate in Singapore, and I shut the engines down, and still nothing. And I started to think the worst. I felt my shoulders slump down, thinking, oh no, I haven't made it after all of this work that I put into it. And then I went to put my my airport charts away in the little manual that we had at the time. And then I felt this tap on the shoulder, and I turned around and he said, you might have missed out on the Olympics, but here's your gold. And he handed me 4 gold bars, which was the captain insignia. And he said, well done, Captain. And I went, oh, just about collapsed with relief. It was an amazing moment for me. It was quite surreal. Then I walked around. I remember walking around Singapore the next day in a daze, just couldn't believe it had happened. So, yeah, that was back in 2000. That occurred, September 2000. I remember. Quite an amazing moment. Probably the most amazing moment. That, and when I got into Qantas, that was pretty cool. Oh, and one more. Sorry, I'm going on. When
Please
I first went, my first solo, first flew an airplane by myself. That was pretty defining.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 18 when I first solo. Yeah.
Wow.
Started flying 17. Didn't get my driver's license. The driver's license story was funny as well, if you want to hear it.
Please, for sure.
I remember getting my commercial pilot's license when I was 19, and I still hadn't bothered to get my driver's license yet. So what had happened was all my friends had got cars, and I had no money for cars because I went on lessons. So I used to get public transport, ride my push bike or a train. So I thought my L's had expired the first time, and then I thought, oh, I can't let it happen again. That's just too embarrassing. So I went in. I had about a week to go before they expired the second time. So I thought I better do some driving lessons. So Monday morning I signed up to start, and then I booked my test in for that Friday. And so one whole week of lessons, that was enough. But back in the day, you could get away with it.
Yeah.
And I got into the car on the Friday morning, ready to do my test. And mind you, by this stage, I'd done lots of flying tests and high pressure and so on, so it wasn't too bad. But the driving examiner on the day, making small talk, he said, so what do you do for a living? And I said, oh, I'm a commercial pilot. And he just turned around and looked at me. He said, what are you doing here? He said, if you can fly a plane, you can drive a car. Let's go back. And that was my driving test. Wouldn't get away with that now, but that's what happened.
Oh, classic.
Yeah.
We won't tell anyone, don't worry.
No.
That's right. It's too long. The records have probably been destroyed now anyway. So, yeah, it was quite funny. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Oh, that's so cool.
So that was good. So, yeah, I've had a few of those defining moments. Yeah, first solo, getting into Qantas and becoming a captain. They were really amazing. Yeah.
So, what's your greatest joy about what you do? I'd like to know, flying, but also now in your new role as a paramedic. Can you talk about what drives you, what gives you that joy and sense of satisfaction?
It's helping people, being there for people. They're sick people, they're very unwell, and if I can make a difference to them, I've only got them for, maybe a couple of hours at the most, but if I can have that interaction with them where I'm looking after them and I'm able to talk to them, and even if it's just to take their mind off what's occurring for that short time, then that's worth it. The other thing that I see is that there are a lot of really unwell people, a lot of people that aren't well off at all, just in terms of their socioeconomic position. And it really drives home to me what I do have. I have my health. I have a roof over my head. I can comfortably put food on the table for me and my family. And I really appreciate that more. And so not only being able to try and help people, look after them, make a very small difference to them, and it is only small, if I can do that and I can appreciate what I have, then that's all worthwhile. I don't do this for any other reason other than it's rewarding for me. You know, it's not the stuff that you'll make a TV show out of, but it makes a difference to that person that I'm with. And if I can do that, it makes me pretty happy. You know, if I can see them smiling and thanking us for the time that I've had with them and getting them, you know, from a hospital to a nursing home safely, and we've been able to care for them, then that's great. That's what I do it for.
Wow.
It's awesome.
That's amazing. And
it's really awesome.
I'm going to go a bit of a tangent here. I'm kind of curious. You mentioned your family here.
Yeah.
And has any of your kids or gone into that same profession? Have they kind of followed along?
They're interested. Like, my youngest daughter is she was interested in flying. I think she's still interested in flying, but she looks at how much it's going to cost, and it's like, no, it's just too hard. So
things are a lot different than they maybe used to be when you first started.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and she's expressed interest in potentially looking at, you know, patient transport officer, paramedic. She's still finding her way a little bit, but certainly, if I can be a role model to them, that they can achieve whatever you want to achieve. Don't let people tell you that you can't do something. I started studying paramedicine at 47. 5 years ago. I'm 52 now. That's quite late in life to start something completely new. But I just would say to people, if you think you want to do it, just do it. And if you're motivated to do it and you want to learn, don't let anyone put you off, because it's such a great opportunity. Even if nothing comes of it, just to be able to learn something new is an amazing experience. It opens your eyes to things. So, and that's what I'm trying to say to my kids. Like, you if you want to do something, throw your heart and soul into it. Be the best you can. I don't want you to be the best in the world. I just want you to be the best you can be. And if you can be the best you can be, then that's all you need to do. And everyone's different. But never let anyone tell you can't do something, because you can if you want it bad enough.
Yeah, well, you're a great role model to not only the students who probably might be tuning into this podcast, and others out there, of the attitude, and I think the humility it takes to be a constant learner even after all your achievements.
Yeah.
It's pretty. It's really great.
I'm
example.
humbled by the people I see. You know, the people I work with, the people I help as a paramedic. You know, it's I look at them and I'm just so humbled by what I see, and it's just amazing, inspirational. You know, I find inspiration in others, and it drives me forward.
Now, Sean, you're clearly an enthusiast. You're also an avid scuba diver, I understand. And has your skills and knowledge in paramedicine assisted you in that endeavour as well?
I haven't fortunately had to use it yet, which is great. But I'm prepared, and we're looking at setting up some more. Some education with some of the divers that I dive with, and you know, I really enjoy it. It's just one of the things I do. No one can talk to me. There are no phones. There's no anything that can disturb me down there, and I love it. Yeah, it's great. But I haven't had to use it, but I've certainly been able to put together, you know, some equipment and processes that if something were to happen, I'm a lot more prepared than I would have been in the past. That's for sure. Yeah.
Wow. I understand you're also volunteering as a firefighter. Is that true?
I just started. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I think we might need another hour for this interview just to talk about all the other things you're up to.
Well, I've only just started, so it's only very new for me. But I just thought, you know, there's got to be, you know, some community service that I can do to help as well. It's unpaid, so that's real giving, right? When I don't get paid for what I do, that's real service, and that's what I wanted to do. And the other reason is my daughter's just joined up, my youngest daughter, and it was like an opportunity for us to do something together and do a bit of bonding, you know. And I'm really enjoying it, and there's some great people down there as well. I'm loving learning again something else, and and I can bring the paramedical stuff into that, because they look at you and, oh, you've got first aid. Yeah, I've got a little bit more than first aid, so we can then start to look at helping out in that capacity, because you're exposing yourself. That's heat exhaustion, burns. You can trip over things can fall on you. There's a lot of risks out there from a paramedic's perspective, and if I can be some assistance in that role, then that's awesome. So again, it's the paramedic stuff's just been kind of useful everywhere really. Diving, the firefighting, on airplanes, and shopping centres. You just never know. Yeah, it's awesome.
How do you balance your time, family? I mean, you alluded to, hey, you've got your daughter in as well with the Rural Fire Brigade.
But the timing is good. I try to get organised. Like, I'll get up early. If I wake early, I might read a textbook or something for an hour or two, and then have breakfast. Or it's just time management, really. Like, I've been down here in Coomera in a hotel, so I've managed to get a whole bunch of stuff done on my downtime. So instead of sitting there watching TV, I'll work. And I find that quite relaxing as well. Well, and I'll keep fit. I try and keep fit. That also helps. Keeps my body and mind in sync. So it is all about time management.
Yeah.
And prioritising. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think if we all calculated maybe the amount of time we spent on Netflix and all the other things that kind of social media that we can just lose time in, we could put that energy, that focus into, like you said, that I guess that characteristic of curiosity that you have. I'm going to use this time to learn something new, to be curious and keep on my toes, and it's enjoyable when you get the time to do it. You make it sound so inviting to just sign up for another university course or a diploma. Most people just, the last thing on their mind is going back to school. But I love the way that you approach it, and I think it's really important for people is you want to enjoy what you're learning. You don't want to just kind of, like you said, this is just the thing to do to get my qualifications. It's the journey in the process as well. And
I think you've really highlighted that point, that if I do things and learn about things that I love to do, then it's not a chore. And that's important. Like, again, the message I'm sending to my kids is that you've got to pick something that you love, because you're going to wake up every day and you're going to do this thing, whatever it is you choose. So why don't you choose something you're going to be satisfied with, that's going to provide enjoyment? We all have our moments, don't get me wrong, but by and large, if that's what floats your boat, then go for it. And it's not hard to study something that you're interested in. I would struggle with certain aspects of study, things that I'm not interested in, but that's just me. I'm interested in certain things, I'll go for it. And that makes the study easy. Yeah.
And it makes the sacrifice worth it, right? In the end, obviously, you're going to have to give up things you'd much rather be doing, surfing or on the weekends and going to the Olympics. And and look, you don't have to give it all up. It's just finding a good balance. You don't have to give up watching a movie. You don't have to give up going out with your friends or doing your sport or whatever. You don't have to give up any of that. It's just being smart with the way you utilise your time. And if you do that, then you can have both. So I'm still curious, because I'm sure someone like you, right now, COVID-19, you've obviously put some energy towards your paramedic work now, but are you cooking anything else up? Is there anything else that you kind of, what's on the future? Is there anything you're planning down the line that you just love to do? Is there anything else that Sean Golding is got another challenge or adventure or something that you'd like to achieve that you're going to set your mind to? Yeah, I'm kind of getting into, at the moment, the human factors training with medicine. I see, an opportunity there for improvement, and I see an opportunity for me, having my experience now
in the health system and in hospitals and doing this kind of work, that I've got more context to bring my flying experience into that. And that's what I'm currently working on, just putting together some training programs that we might be able to get out there and share what we've learned in aviation to medicine. And if we can do that, then again, it just makes medicine even more robust and stronger and safer. And if I can bring that into the equation, then that's awesome. So I love studying that. So that's what I'm doing. That's what's cooking behind the scenes at the moment.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah,
Mate.
it is. It's really, really cool. So yeah, I can't wait to start.
Dr. Sean Golding.
I don't think I'll ever be a doctor.
Mate, you keep on your trail of curiosity. I think there's no end to where you could go.
Either that, or you'll be on Elon Musk's next SpaceX expedition to Mars. I think.
All that too.
I don't know.
And you appeared on Sunrise.
Yeah.
Now you're on Changing Lives podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of media appearances, there's also a whole wide world out there now.
Yeah, Oprah was in touch with us. She did want you on, but I told her that she's just going to have to let you kind of enjoy this moment of fame before you kind of go down a little bit and lower your standards. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on, mate. I know you're busy on work. You're about ready to head out, and
no, that's been my pleasure. It's been awesome speaking with you guys and sharing the stories, and hopefully we can get people thinking about what they can do and to follow their dreams and make a difference. Do something for yourself, but do something for others as well. It's just a great feeling.
Excellent, Sean. Thanks so much. Have a great day at work.
Thanks very much, guys. Okay,
Cheers.
see ya. Bye.